Hi, my name is Kelly Marciales. I am serving as a deaconess in the Alaska Conference. I am the program coordinator for community organizing for the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and I serve as the director of Organizing for Mission Network. I am a faith-based community organizer by trade, but I also have the privilege of being able to teach at seminaries, faith-based community organizing tools. So I'm also an adjunct at Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary, and I'll be teaching at Wartburg Seminary this winter. So, what drew me to the DHM community initially was meeting a deaconess. I had been a United Methodist for almost a decade, but I had never met a United Methodist deaconess before I moved to Alaska. So when I moved up here, I met now retired Deaconess Fran Lynch, who was serving as the Willow Food Pantry um, director and coordinator, and meeting Fran and understanding her relationship to the church. Um, just having a woman like her in my life with such a deep and abiding faith and a sense for justice, and then learning about the DHM community through her really helped me understand my own call. I went to a discernment event. Fran had hosted me and a couple of other people here in Alaska for a mini discernment. Since we're so far flung, we couldn't fly down back then. They were doing discernments in person, so we did a discernment amongst ourselves, and I felt that I was called to at least put it in an application, because I felt that the work that I was doing here in Alaska as a faith-based community organizer really was in line with what I felt God calling me to be in relationship to the church. Um, I don't know that I had a lot of clarity around ordination versus lay ministry. At the time that I applied, I felt very strongly about having lay leadership in the church that was um, educated in our polity, that had a sense of voice and direction, particularly more people, lay people in the church that looked like myself, that were younger and people of color. It was a lot of the reason why I decided to pursue becoming a deaconess was that I felt I had a very definite vision that God had placed in my mind and in my heart for where I wanted to partner with others in leading the church forward, especially during the time that I was taking classes was during 2016 General Conference, and seeing the division and really starting to get a clearer sense for what the church could be. I wanted to lend my gifts and my experience as a lay person in the church to driving that forward. The sense that I had around being clergy, I never felt comfortable with some of the roles of clergy. Um, and as a lay person, those were not part of the roles. I never felt called to the sacraments, but mostly pastoral care was not really the calling in my heart. I wanted to lead as a community organizer. And I do know clergy who are also community organizers. Um, but for me, I didn't need to be clergy to be a community organizer. Um, and I felt that that was my main identity. So being a deaconess is my relationship to the church, and the work that I do is as a community organizer rather than my relationship to the church being clergy. I feel that there are ways in which I cannot hold the institution accountable if I were clergy in the United Methodist Church, that as a layperson I can. And I feel I feel very strongly that that's where God was calling me. And I am grateful for the opportunity to work within my jurisdiction on holding the church accountable. Uh, as far as what I believe the Deaconess Home Missioner Order to be is a community of lay people who are extraordinarily dedicated to love, justice, and service in the community. Um, I am grateful for the consecration class that I was a part of. Many of us still keep in contact. We have made our own sub community through text, and we hop on Zoom calls occasionally. And our relationship to one another provides, given the distance that I'm in Alaska and some of us are as far as the East Coast, um, it gives us a sense of community with one another in in a way that I don't find in my local congregation. The Deaconess Home Missioner uh, members have a deeper sense of spirituality and call, and understand the challenges of working in ministry full time, that other lay people in my congregation just don't don't seem to have that specific depth. So I am grateful for the community of Deaconess and Home Missioner that I do relate to, because ministry can be lonely, and it can be challenging. And so to have those in the DHM community to be able to, yeah, to relate to bounce ideas off of, to collaborate with, is really a blessing. And part of why I wanted to be part of the DHM in the first place was to be in a community. And I do feel seen and honored in this community for the gifts and talents that I bring to it, as I honor and celebrate those other DHM who have their own wildly different gifts and talents and are in their own contexts, changing the world and bringing the gospel to the community. I would say that something that was really helpful when I was discerning was to have other DHM in my field to be able to connect with. Um, Community organizing is in itself a sort of lonely ministry. And to have others in the community that I could connect with who understood the work as well as the discernment to the order was really helpful. And so I'm grateful for that. If it weren't for those in my community who were open to having the conversations around why this, why now, why not something else, why not just go to seminary and get an MDiv, um, I don't know that I would have pursued the DHM order as intently as I did. So yes, I'm grateful for others who are in my mission field doing the same kind of work, or in my vocation, to be able to share, my thoughts and collaborate with. The DHM community is vital to the life of the church, especially now, as we are seminary trained lay people who have a stake in ministry fields that are not bound necessarily to the four walls of a church. I think deaconesses and home missioners have a unique perspective on ministry that is growing and sustaining communities all over the United States in a way that is not so insular as church ministries often can be. We work in nonprofit, we work in hospitals, we work in law and at the border and immigration. We work all over in these sectors, and we bring that knowledge and experience into the church in ways that the church has more or less ceased to do evangelism and has ceased to have their finger on the pulse of what's going on. In this way, I believe the DHM community is so vital to the church moving forward. With us at the table, what we can offer is a perspective that isn't being otherwise tapped into. Deacons are, when a congregation has deacons, are not always as unbiased about the community and the realities around policy and implementation around the church as the DHM community members can be. As lay people, we have not only the perspective, but we have a little bit more freedom to be able to speak the truth into those spaces because the positions of power don't hold our paychecks. And that is powerful, to be able to have that freedom and to be able to speak truth without fear of um, certain kind of repercussions related to our job or related to our church ministry life. Um, I think that also our voice and vote at conference is crucial. Deaconesses and home missioners are very progressive minded, have done a lot of work in the communities and bring all of that to the table at conference and are able to, because we've been trained in United Methodist polity and doctrine, are able to filter our experience, our lived experience in ministry through the understanding of polity and doctrine and be able to apply that on the floor of conferences. Um, that is a very unique perspective that we can bring. And I hope to grow our order and to see more representation like that. To that end, I would really like to see deaconess and home missioner candidates take an interest in the polity of the United Methodist Church. We are at a very crucial time in our history where the church is on the cusp of a split. And as we split, there is an opportunity to reimagine and create anew what church looks like and how we relate to one another, to be able to craft the book of discipline, to be able to craft legislation and resolutions that orient us toward Christ in ways that have been kind of more or less forgotten or buried in our very thick book of discipline. So I encourage those who are considering candidacy that this is not just a relationship between you and your local congregation or you and even your conference, but that this is a relationship between you and the breadth of ministry experience that you would be bringing to the order and a relationship to the broader church globally.